and I wanted to share something with you that I recently had to do. And I thought, hey, this is a great benefit to sewing that I think others should know about. So here's the question. Have you ever wanted to add length to a pair of pants that were too short? Well, that was the case with me just recently because I tried on a pair of pants that I hadn't worn for a while to go exercise, and look, they were too short. Once I put on my exercise shoes, um, those pants are like right above the ankle bone. So I decided it was a great opportunity for me to show you how to add some length to a pair of pants. So again, that's one of the great benefits of knowing how to sew. And I didn't have to send it out anywhere, didn't have to send it um, to an alteration shop, another seamstress. I could actually do it myself. So I went about doing that and I'm sharing it with you. So I'm going to show you how to do that, okay? So first of all, you need to determine if there is enough excess hem that can be used, or if you're going to need to add any fabric. And by fabric, I mean that you're going to add some seam binding or maybe some type of lace or something that's decorative that you can add to the top, add to the bottom of the pants to give them some length. So in this case, I could see that there was enough fabric. But first I needed to make that determination. And in order to make that determination, I had to kind of deconstruct the hem or release the hem. So here you see that I actually started taking out the hem so I can determine if it was enough excess to actually let out the hem. Okay, in the pants here, you see after my releasing this hem, there is enough fabric to add some length. So looks like the hem was just doubled. So it had a little weight to it. And as I released it, then you can see that, that's a good, mm, what, 2.5 inches or so. So let's continue removing the hem. And as you can see, I utilized my little tool here. That's pretty much all I used for taking the hem out of the pants. And that tool that I use to clip the threads loose is the Ginger snipper. So basically what you're doing is making sure that you can put the blade between the thread and the outer fabric and just clip the threads instead of taking a ripper and pushing it uh, to cut the thread, which could also mean you may accidentally cut the outer fabric as well as, in this case, the lace. So I like this little tool. I love it. Basically, it is the best little thing because, of course, I had an accident with a ripper, so now I kind of stay away from them unless it's absolutely necessary. Because it gives you that tendency to just push it and rush it. With the snippers, I know I can't do that. I just have to clip, clip, clip. It takes a little more time, but it's well worth it. So I continue clipping the thread until the entire hem is detached. So of course, being careful not to cut the outer fabric because in this case with the lace, you can have a larger hole on either side, on the side where I'm going to place the hem or the side where the lace is attached. And then if I've got that hole, then I'm trying to repair that. So it just saves me time by taking my time and utilizing the clipper as I go. Now, once I've completed that, I look for a thread to match as close as possible to the original. Or if I'm not utilizing or if I can't find the thread, this is where I'd be creative. Whereas you can add a contrasting thread, you can add a contrasting binding, you can add a contrasting lace. You can do whatever you want to do at this point because you want to add some length. But in my case, I'm able to use that excess fabric and make it as close to the original as possible. Now, of course, this may require a little trip to the store if you don't have anything on hand. In my case, I had a stash of thread. I actually buy threads when they're on sale. And right now, well, Joann's as well as Hancock run sales on threads, pretty often. So I collect those and try and find a basic thread. For some reason, I had this blue, kind of a, I don't know why. Maybe I made something earlier, but, I had the thread available. So I didn't have to make the trip to the store, right? So you may have to do that just in order to continue your project, or this is a great opportunity to find a contrasting thread. I normally just take the project that I'm working on in the store and just walk around until I find something that I think goes with it and utilize that. Okay? So afterwards, after that's done, I want to remove all the hanging threads so that I'll have a clean piece of fabric to work on. As you see from those clippings that's left from the thread, then I want to pull those out. So I'll have a clean piece of fabric. So just pick those out. Some people use tweezers. There are some sewing tweezers that you can purchase, whereas instead of you are trying to pick them out with your finger, you can actually just pick those out with a pair of tweezers. And then open up the seam to look for more threads that are kind of in between where you would normally see them on the outside. You've got to open up that seam to find the additional threads that were left from the clipping. Now, what you want to do next is start attaching the hem back to the leg. So here in this case, you want to match up any seam lines to start reattaching that hem. So you can see in the picture on the left how those seams are all lined up. Well, that's exactly what I want to do with the part that I've detached and I'm reattaching it in a different way. So I just usually take a little straight pin and go through the seam that I'm attaching and pick up the seam on the other piece of fabric that I'm working with, other piece of the garment that I'm working with. As you can see here, it just lines up pretty well there. So I'll just pin it as you see below, making sure that I've gone through the seams on each piece and pin that so as I sew, I can sew over it, but it will definitely line up. Then from there, I want to pin the remaining of the hem, and I'm going lengthwise with the hem and crosswise with the seam so that they match up and I can sew and pull my pins out as I go. So now, if you're using the sewing machine, you I'm going to thread my bobbin, wind my bobbin, of course, and then thread my machine. So I'll be ready to, I'll have the same colors on both sides. Because sometimes if you're using a contrasting color, it will show through. And again, in this case, I'm trying to keep it as close to the original as possible without any additional contrasting threads or anything like that. Or, the same project, it can be done by hand with just a regular hand needle. Thread that with your matching thread or contrasting thread, whatever you want to do, and then you just sew it on hand rather than the machine. Now I want to reattach that top portion of the hem to the pant leg. Now this is what I've pinned. So as you can see, I am stitching through that previous stitching on the hem and going around the leg, and I've stitched across the pin that was crosswise, that was actually in the seams, holding that together to make sure that those seams match. So from there, I want to turn it over on the right side and top stitch the hem in the previous stitching So once again, making it as close to the original as possible. As you can see on the left, you can still see the holes from the previous stitching. Now, because this is a polyester fabric, those holes are a little difficult to remove. So I'm utilizing those same holes so that it doesn't show up as as something extra. So I'm just utilizing those and stitching through that as I go. And so that way no one sees any type of difference. Okay, on the excess hem, the bottom part that I removed, they actually serged that and turned it up. So that could actually be my hem, but I didn't really want that to be the hem. I'm going to turn it up again, make it look like just a little narrow hem or handkerchief hem. Not really a handkerchief hem, like a rolled hem. So in the excess, there may be that small portion that's already turned up, as in the picture below. Okay. Now, as I said, what I did was I turned up another row to cover the raw edges because I just didn't like that raw edge look. All right. So here you can see where I can turn it up and then I just finger pressed it down, and then I came back and I stitched it in the previous stitching from the old hem. Here, I didn't even pin it. I just turned it up, started stitching. Utilizing that excess, that part that was serged, I used that as the hemming guide. So I just turned it up, made sure I pretty much had the same amount of space, and stitched in that previous stitching to get this look. So, of course, once I'm done, I clipped off the extra threads with my little Gingham snipper. And what you see on the right is how clean it looks now. So that's a really good clean finish. Now, of course, what you can do also is pull the thread to the inside and then tie it down and clip it from the inside. I didn't do that. I just clipped it on the outside because, as I said, these are my exercise pants, but I still wanted them to look neat. From there, I stitched another row close to the hem edge, forming a double row of top stitching. Okay, you see what that looks like? And it actually gives it a little bit more weight as well. And then again, keeping it clean, clip off any extra threads. Next, of course, to the ironing board, um, I pressed on the wrong side to remove the crease from the old hem. You can see the crease on the right side that's in the picture on the left. You can see that crease. And actually, from there, I turned it on the wrong side because I wanted to press it on the wrong side using some steam. But in some cases, if you have to press it on the right side, you want to use your pressing cloth so that you don't get that shiny look. Okay. Or, chances are, you can kind of overheat it. So you want to use a pressing cloth to take up some of that heat. All right. And then once we're done, look, as you can see, you can barely see the existing hemline. So here, once I pressed it, turned it on the right side, steamed it really good, I've got my problem solved. I've added an extra 2 inches to the pants that were too short. And now I can wear these pants with a coordinating jacket. I don't have to wear black all the time. I love color. So this is one of the reasons that I really wanted to add some length to these pants because they're just a different color than something I have already. Most of the time I'm in gray or black or you name it, something neutral. But here I've got this almost lime green, neon green with some with a bright blue, and I happen to have these pants that would work well with it. So I'll just, have a t-shirt on and I can go exercise with this. So if you need or want more great tips and the benefits of learning how to sew, check out our site at www.sewityourself.com. Leave any questions or concerns you may have at the bottom, any comments, and we'll get back to you. Feel free to let us know if this has helped you at all, and if you have anything that you'd like to see relative to sewing, we can we can give you those tips. Thanks so much for watching. You have a great day. Goodbye.